Well, today had a little bit of everything, y'all. It had a touch of the future with Lexus space travel and a blast from the past with an expert relying on reports from 1979. It is Wednesday, May 28th, and we just wrapped up day 22 in Karen Reed's second trial. Now, Dr. Welcher was back on the stand this morning, finishing up his direct testimony. The judge made her ruling from yesterday that Welcher was able to testify about John O'Keefe's injuries being consistent with being hit by a car, but he was not allowed to testify that there was a collision. So during the end of his direct testimony, Welcher actually says that with a reasonable degree of scientific or engineering certainty, the damage to Karen Reed's SUV was consistent with a collision with John O'Keefe. Now, some things really started to get interesting around 30 minutes in when Alessi starts his cross-examination of Dr. Welcher. Take a look at their first interaction.
Morning, Dr. Welcher.
Good morning. We haven't been formally introduced. Your whole name?
Robert Alessi, sir.
Robert Lessie. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Alessi's first line of questioning revolved around Welcher's hypothesis of how John O'Keefe died and his understanding of the meaning of confirmation bias. Now, he comes back to confirmation bias at the end of the day too, which we'll get to. But Alessi brought up something that Welcher said on direct, that he had, quote unquote, no dog in the fight being this trial. So Alessi points out that Aperture, the company where Welcher is a VP, has a signed contract for this case with a bill of more than $44,000 plus an amendment with another $325,000. And Welcher said he wasn't sure if any of that had been paid yet since they started like 8 or 9 months ago, which, like, what? Imagine working on a project for 9 months and knowing that amount of money is supposed to be coming in, but not knowing if you or your company has gotten paid. That's wild to me. But going over all of the finances part of it is just kind of Alessi's way of showing maybe you do have a dog in this fight. Now, throughout the morning during questioning, Welcher kind of continually refers to his open computer. He has like a laptop or something on the stand with him, and he keeps looking at it and reading from it. And Alessi calls this out and like multiple times, not just like once, like this happens multiple times. And even when they come back from break, Alessi's like, Bev, he's still on his computer. Can you please tell him to close it? So what was he looking at? Now, this isn't usually allowed. Experts aren't allowed to just read from their reports or their computers because they want to make sure that the expert's testimony and the answers to questions are based on his or her own understanding and knowledge about what they're talking about. And they can't guarantee that if an expert is basically just kind of like reading from a document. So let me know what you think. Do you think he should be allowed to look? Or were you yelling at the screen for him to close his laptop? Do you think maybe he was in chat with us? Tell me what you think he was doing. Okay, so moving on, Alessi starts asking Welcher questions about this amended PowerPoint presentation. Y'all, we found out today in court that the defense was actually provided the new PowerPoint at 3 p.m. on Memorial Day, which was Monday. And then this guy was up on the stand Tuesday morning, literally less than 24 hours later. And this feels oddly like an ambush, as Brennan would say, but whatever. Speaking of ambush, there are some new documents that were filed from the prosecution today, and I actually read them and broke them down today when we were on a break. So if you want to check that out, it's around the 1 hour and 35-minute mark on today's live stream. I have it marked in the chapters. And spoiler alert, it includes Brennan talking or whining about trial by ambush. Okay, so moving on, we get into the medical info. Now, we hear from Welcher that most of the injuries sustained from motor vehicle accidents are to the head, like 61%. But apparently, only 12% of those head injuries are fatal. But here's the thing. We hear that these numbers that Welcher referenced in his PowerPoint and his report are from a report that was written in 1979. Think about how different the cars are now from how they were in 1979. This is wild to me.
This article was published back in 1979, correct?
I believe that's correct.
It's 46 years old, therefore, if I did the math correct, right?
That sounds correct.
Are you aware that given advancements in science since 1979, advancements in medicine, advancements in technology, the currently understood most common injuries as a result of pedestrian motor vehicle collisions are injuries to the lower extremities?
I'd have to see the study. It wouldn't surprise me.
So Alessi then talks about the laceration above John O'Keefe's eye, and also that on direct, Welcher had said that the laceration or cut kind of lines up with that spoiler or wind wing. He calls it different things on different times, but it's like that piece that kind of jets out of the top of Karen Reed's SUV, like on the back. And it's like toward the top, it kind of comes out. He lined himself up with that and kind of used that as like oh yeah, look, this lines up. This could, be how his eye laceration comes. But Alessi makes the point that the photo that was shown yesterday where Welcher is like dressed as John O'Keefe and all weird, he makes the point that that's lined up with the top of the model of the SUV, but it doesn't take into account the 4-inch berm outside of 34 Fairview. So he asks about this, and here's Welcher's answer.
I'm trying to make it clear, we don't know his exact body position at the point of impact, nor do we know the exact position on the ground. So, which is part of the reason why I haven't tried to exactly simulate this, because we don't have enough parameters to do that. So I don't have that information. I'm showing the geometry relative to someone of Mr. O'Keefe's height.
So you don't have the information to do that properly, so therefore you can't conclude that he had a laceration to the eye from the spoiler by your own answer that you just gave, correct?
So it was done properly. We don't have absolute information to say where exactly he was. I'm pointing out that the physical evidence, the height, matches the height of the laceration. That is one data point of many data points.
So throughout the day, there was a lot of back and forth between Welcher and Alessi. And in my opinion, Welcher was really kind of rude. Like when Alessi asked him about the blue paint exercise.
I'll just call it the blue paint exercise. Is that descriptive enough for you to know what I'm talking about?
No, it's not an exercise, it's a test.
Okay, you want to call it a blue paint test?
Sure.
Okay, let's call it a blue paint test.
And when Alessi asked him about the lacerations on John O'Keefe's arm.
If you're given a horizontal movement of the car, do you agree that it's more likely than not that vertical lacerations would be an inconsistent jury pattern? Injury pattern.
I'm trying to help you, but you got to give me more. So.
And again, when Alessi asked him about the Lexus driving over 20 miles per hour when it made contact with John O'Keefe.
Was traveling above 20 miles per hour during the period that you allege the SUV made contact with Mr. O'Keefe. Is that correct?
No. Where did you get that from?
Hold on. Okay. The answer is no.
That part threw me. Is that not what we've been talking about this whole time? Is that not what they've been saying this whole time? So to close out the day, Alessi came back to that idea of confirmation bias, and he asks Welcher if he considered any other orientation for John O'Keefe when performing his testing. So Welcher says he did, but somehow those other hypotheses are like nowhere in his report. And he asked about him, and he said, Welcher was like, well, I didn't come here to tell people what didn't happen. I came here to tell people what did happen. Wow. Alessi then asks him, is there no confirmation bias in your testing?
So is it your testimony that no part of what you did in selecting this area, no part of it is confirmation bias? You say there's no confirmation bias at all in what you did. Is that your testimony?
That's certainly my goal. I try and eliminate all confirmational bias. I didn't start out at this particular location. This is where the physical evidence led me to.
At the end of the day, the jury was sent home and there was a short voir dire. Now, reminder, a voir dire is the questioning that's done outside the presence of the jury to determine what is allowed to come in during court. Now, it seems like there are kind of two main issues here that they talked about during the voir dire. One is relying on Trooper Paul's report for Welcher's PowerPoint presentation, since there were multiple pictures in Welcher's slides that were also in Trooper Paul's report. Now, if you missed the first trial, Trooper Paul was the crash reconstructionist from Massachusetts State Police. His testimony was, well, difficult, maybe would be the right word. Look, he didn't know how to answer some questions on cross, and he would answer by saying things like, "It just does," or "The crime scene spoke to me." Memes galore. If you missed it, it was a moment. But more importantly, there are some times when the report says the alleged collision happened, and it has been proven that those times are wrong. Now, the defense wants the jury to know the Commonwealth's theory has changed multiple times as they've been proven wrong on different things. Of course, that works well for them, right? It goes along with what they've been pointing out about Welcher changing his report as things have progressed. And Brennan does not want this to come in. He says that Welcher did not rely on Trooper Paul's report, just some things in Trooper Paul's report folder. Okay, that's his argument. Now, the other issue is about the medical examiner. Welcher says that he looked at Dr. Scorti-Bello's report, but didn't rely on all of it. In fact, listen to exactly what he said, because I almost fell out of my chair.
Regarding her conclusions about whether this was caused by a car accident or not, did you consider that as the basis of your opinion?
No, I wouldn't take a person like that's opinion for that.
Did you ever have a conversation with Dr. Scorti-Bello about her expertise limitations?
No, I would want a biomechanical analysis.
Now, the judge will hear the arguments on that in the morning and then make her decision on if either of those or both of those are allowed in. Now, Welcher will be back on the stand tomorrow. He's actually supposed to be the prosecution's final witness. So will they finally rest tomorrow? It's almost time for the defense to present their case. And y'all, to sum today up, the court reporter at the end of the day was literally all of us in chat. Now, for a full breakdown of everything happening in court this week, make sure to check out 13th Juror Podcast at the end of each week. And tomorrow, as a reminder, will be a Hoff day. So we are starting at 9 a.m. and ending likely around 1:30. So will we learn more about physics and paint exercises? I don't know. Tune in to find out right here on Crime Junkie Jury.